Hi there VC, Steve Whitty here. Time for another video. This is going to be a recent finds video. I've got a lot to catch up with. Some may notice I hadn't been doing as many videos over the last few months. That is partly twofold for a couple of reasons. Firstly, a couple of months ago I was suffering from chest pains. Now fortunately it was nothing serious. After a few tests, it turns out I've got a calcium buildup in my aortic valve. The doctors don't deem it too desperate or urgent. Just going to keep an eye on it. I'm being referred to the cardiology unit just to make sure everything's okay. But as it stands, nothing seriously wrong. Secondly, I'd been on holiday in end of September, beginning of October. Needed a rest, break. So yes, that's where I've been. So I've got a couple of videos where I'm going to catch up on my recent find. So this one is going to be the stuff I had from in between July's recent finds up to when I went away on holiday in September. So there's not that many records to show, about a dozen really. So without further ado, first record is Delaney and Bonnie with Eric Clapton and Friends. This is On Tour. So this is the live album. This, I believe, if I remember rightly where it was recorded, might have been recorded in the UK. At this time, Clapton got a bit fed up with Blind Faith. He just wanted to be a member of the band, of a band again. So he joined up with Delaney and Bonnie. I don't think he might have been too keen on being like hooked up as being the part of the main part of the act. He'd rather just be Delaney and Bonnie. I think Coming Home is great. The Little Richard medley is great as well. I mean, the band, a lot of this formed the focus of Derek and the Dominoes, to be honest. So, as well as Delaney and Bonnie and Clapton, got Dave Mason on there, Carl Riedel, Jim Gordon, Bobby Whitlock, Jim Price, Bobby Keys, Rita Coolidge is also on vocals as well. If you get it, I've got this in the £2 bins. If you find a copy, it's well worth seeking out. Next up, Quicksilver Messenger Service, Happy Trails. This is probably their best known album. I'd been eyeing this in the bins at the Cyclotron Records Pete shop for ages, and never thought, or something else always sort of took my attention, which I ended up buying. But I took the plunge on this. Now this is sort of like psych rock. So you've got Who Do You Love's on here, parts 1 and 2. Mona's on here, the old Bo Diddley song. Yes, it's really a cracking. It's well worth the wait, actually. A bit rock, a bit of psych in there, but absolutely well worth having. Next up, Depeche Mode. Now this is their Construction Time Again album from 1983. So that makes it, I believe, their third album. And this is where they started to sound darker. Martin Gore was doing the writing. The tone had changed a little bit. He was a bit more experimental with his writing. Probably best known track on here is Everything Counts. The Grabbing Hands grab all they can. Sort of like preempts up what the 80s was going to be like for a lot of people. Those that did well and those that sort of missed out. I've been getting into a lot of Depeche Mode recently. Well, we're seeking out, I think, a band that passed me by because I might have just dismissed them as being somewhat, dare I say, for the girls sort of thing. But, actually, when you delve in deep enough, a bit like Duran Duran as well. I feel about that, like that. You find actually different nuances that you really appreciate. Staying with the 80s, this is Orchestral Manoeuvres in the Junk Culture. This is very much their pop album. Dazzle Ships had failed miserably. So the following year they come out with this, and you've got here Tesla Girls, Locomotive. Yeah, it's the contrast with Dazzle Ships. I think it sort of surprises. But I suppose Dazzle Ship being such a failure, they needed to maybe recoup some money as well, and having some just pop songs. I think they were all top 20 hits, those songs I mentioned. It's not a bad album. It's one I would say just discovered, and partly through the hits, but really enjoyable. Moving decades, love their self-titled debut album. released on Elektra, introduced the band to the world. They were at that point Elektra's sort of big project, Arthur Lee, and all that, and released it, I say, 1966. My Little Red Book. They do a version of Hey Joe on here. Can't Explain, Emotions. This sort of set the template, what would the Capo and then Forever Changes albums. These are the 3 albums of love I think he should have, in my opinion. So again, pleased to have that. Got this next album, Dirt Cheap, partly because the cover has seen better days. Not too bad, but it has seen better days. And this is MC5 back in the USA. This was the first studio album. You can see the album ring rare there. Tutti Frutti opens it. This is just good rock and roll. Nothing too fancy. Just straight ahead meat and potatoes rock and roll. Sort of precursor to punk. Some will say. I know Lemmy formed Motorhead because he wanted a band that sounded like the MC5. He was a big fan of theirs. Pleased to have this. I think, it's... I listened to the podcast 500 Greatest Songs in the History of Rock and Roll, and they featured one episode on the MC5, and I think a band that sort of had the precursor, sort of shoot themselves in the foot, so to speak. Could have been bigger. Sadly, none of the members are around anymore. Silk record, I found it in the shop. It's the Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon, live at Wembley's 1974. Basically a live version of Dark Side of the Moon. Sort of now I've got an official release. I've heard so many like bootleg versions of it. There's not really much you can say about the album. It's up there as a classic album, but it's nice to have the live version to sort of compare and contrast. Will I go for any of the 50th anniversary of Wish You Were Here that's coming out in the next month? Probably not. I think I'm more than happy with what I've got with that one. Somewhat different. This is a comp album called Propaganda No Wave 2. This came out on A&M. So the bands that are featured, the first side is a live side. So you've got a live version of Goodbye Girl by Squeeze, Throw It Away and Come On by Joe Jackson, then Landlord and Next to You by The Police. These are all like radio broadcasts. Second side features Joe Jackson, Don't Want to Be Like That. You've got The Wrong Way, a pre for the unreleased Squeeze track. So you've got bands like Shrink, Bobby Henry, The Secret and The Reds. Bands, artists I've never heard of. So it was nice just to pick it up, just to have a listen to that. But what makes this album for me is the live side one. So I've got particularly the Joe Jackson, who I'm a big fan of, and he's touring, but he's going nowhere near the Midlands. Sod him. Pete played this in the shop and recommended it to me. This is Get That Feeling by Jimi Hendrix and Curtis Knight. It's basically a Curtis Knight record. Jimi Hendrix played with Curtis Knight. It came out in 1968 after Hendrix had broken with the Experience. So this is very much a cash-in album. Having said that, there are some tracks on here which highlight Hendrix's playing, and some of this playing on some of the tracks here is as good as anything that he released on his albums. So it's worth seeking out to have a listen, if nothing else. In my John 6-inch Pianist free records of the Pub Jukebox video, I showed a single by this band, Magnum. This album, Goodnight LA, released in 1991, was the big attempt to try and break Magnum worldwide. Produced by Keith Olsen, Goodnight LA is actually the name of the studio, I believe. So, yeah, it's a attempt to break the band. Normally Tony Clarkin writes on his own, but he got like some Russ Ballard in to co-write songs. There's some good moments. Rocking Chair, the lead track, the lead single is good. Mama's good. Heartbroken Busted is not too bad either. It just suffers a little bit. The songs weren't there, and it's about the time at the end of the year grunge had broken through. Stuff like this, sort of, I wouldn't say hair metal because Magnum were never hair metal. It just sort of fell by the wayside. they had the chance to big time, and it just didn't work out for them. Next up, a Toofer, Graham Bond organisation, and this is the first two albums, The Sound of 65 and There's a Bond Between Us. And you can see from the band, it's the lineup that features Jack Bruce, Ginger Baker and Dick Hextall-Smith, sort of the classic lineup of the band. Albums separately would cost a lot, but this was a twofer that came out Edsel Records and the late 80s, I believe. And I saw it and I thought, I'm going to take it. If you remember when I showed on my BBC Records Hall, I had a Graham Bond live album on there. This is really good. As I said, this particular side is believe the first time a Mellotron had been used in a recording situation. Might be wrong, but yeah, it's worth seeking out. You know, I don't never turn my nose up at a twofer because I think they're well worth having. And then the final album I'll show you is Spooky Tooth, and this is their debut album. It's all about, just about make up the title there. So you've got the lineup on the back. Greg Ridley, who would leave after the album to join Humble Pie. On the album itself, it's, I think the best known track is the cover of Tobacco Road. They do. It's a cookie record. Years ago, I used to say this. I couldn't find when I showed a Spooky Tooth album. Well, it's very hard to find. I've seemed to stumble on quite a few recently, so happy with that. This isn't an original. This is a 1972 reissue, a pink-rimmed Island. So there you go. Happy to have that. So there you go, VC. Those are the records that I acquired before my holiday. Next video, I'll show you what I got in October, and then I pretty much will be back up to date when come the end of the month. I can show November's finds as well. So there you go. If you like what you see, VC, thumbs up, thumbs down. Love the interaction. Feel free to leave a comment. If you feel that inclined, why not subscribe as well? So until the next video, VC, whatever you do, take care of yourselves, keep spinning. More importantly, keep on smiling.